Hi, Dr. N here, and welcome to the new client orientation presentation. I've prepared this for clients who have already committed to moving forward and finding answers, results, and hope for their own, but also for those of you who are just considering what we do and wondering whether or not this is something for you. So over the next 10 or 15 minutes, we're going to spend some time going over some basic and fundamental concepts that will help you understand why we do what we do and how we do that. So we're going to take a few minutes to talk about the philosophy of essential medicine and why this approach is essential to your health. We're also going to talk about principles, or the what, that guides the thinking and the decision-making process. And then finally, we'll talk about priorities, and that is, where do we start? And this is an important consideration when people come in with complex and chronic conditions where they have more than one complaint and likely more than one cause of what their problems actually are. So let's go ahead and start. I've spent a lot of time over the years talking to my clients about the source of their frustrations and what they really think about their health and healthcare in general. And we can really boil those frustrations and those thought processes down to three fundamental things that I think we're all looking for when we're faced with health challenges. And that is, we're looking for answers, results, and hope. Far too often when we see people going into the conventional medical system, they feel like they really don't have answers as to what's wrong with them. In fact, sometimes clients will tell me that their doctors don't even explain what the problem is, or even worse, what the drugs they're offering them actually do or what they're for. We also see a problem with results, and a lot of times people are taking drugs that just simply suppress symptoms, and sometimes they're taking drugs which are really kind of a catch-all approach, just giving the client something that hopefully will change things for the better, and don't always do that. And then finally, there's a large portion of my clients that actually come to me having lost all hope that things can get better. And they're really desperately looking for some validation that things actually are wrong with them. And beyond this general philosophical approach to healthcare that everyone is looking for to some degree, answers, results, and hope, I also have a personal philosophy on healthcare, because I see that the modern healthcare has quite a few problems in the system and how healthcare is delivered. So my personal philosophy is, I want to see fewer people, spend more time with them, and do a better job than anyone else has. So let's take a look at each of these individually. When you look at the conventional medical system, most of which is run under what we call an insurance model, where the insurance companies dictate how much doctors get paid for what types of services and what procedures. What we see over the years is that insurance reimbursement for doctors' services really have gotten quite lower than they used to be. And it's very difficult for a conventionally trained physician to make a good standard of living compared to what doctors in that same field may have had a decade or two or 3 decades ago. So the insurance model actually demands a very high volume. And this is one of the reasons why you may go to your doctor's office and spend 45 minutes in a waiting room or more beyond what your appointment time was. We see phenomena like double booking for the same time slot. This is an endless source of frustration for many of my clients. We also see that when you go into some doctor's offices, they really have fancy offices and lots of staff. I remember years ago, I had injured my knee during some athletic event, and I ended up going to see a local orthopedist, and I was flabbergasted when I walked into their office, and I had to walk in through 12-foot-high oak doors that were double doors with stained glass in them, and they had marble floors and huge pillars and granite desks, and that was just the reception room. So obviously these things come with a price tag, and these high amounts of overhead really demand that physicians see a lot of people, especially when they're not getting paid a lot for each particular patient visit that they have. And then we have the problem with how much time doctors actually spend with their clients. If you look at the statistics, the average doctor visit is less than 10 minutes. And yes, this doesn't apply to every doctor, and it certainly doesn't apply to every specialty, but 10 minutes certainly isn't a lot of time for someone to figure out what your problem is and then devise a rational and effective strategy to treat and change your healthcare situation. Another frightening study was published several years ago that showed that doctors will ask clients what's wrong with them or why they're here to see them, and they wait only about 24 seconds into the explanation before they interrupt the clients with another question or with a comment of their own. And far too often, I've been in physicians' offices myself where the doctor has walked into the room, not even said hello, sat with his or her back facing me while they flipped through my chart to figure out who I was and why I was there. And I've just made a vow that that's not going to happen in my office. And then finally, I want to do a better job. And if you look at satisfaction surveys across all of the different disciplines within modern medicine, we find that the satisfaction of the quality of care in North American medicine is declining. And as evidence of that, there was a study published by the Institute of Medicine about 5 or 6 years ago, around the year 2005, 2006, that said North Americans were spending more money out of pocket for alternative care than they were spending to go see traditional doctors. And this really tells us a lot about the state of dissatisfaction with healthcare in general and the fact that people are looking for alternatives. So just to summarize, the essential medicine philosophy is about providing answers and results and hope for people who have not had answers, who have not gotten the results they're looking for, and have lost hope that somebody can deliver those things. And finally, my personal philosophy is I want to see fewer people and spend more time with them, and in doing that, do a better job than perhaps they've experienced in the past. Let's move on now and talk about some of the basic principles that underlie my thought process. I find it very valuable for my clients to really understand how I think. And really, when it comes down to it, if you can understand why I do what I do and the thought process behind my decisions, then you're far more likely to make the decisions that you need to make to get better. It's a very simple formula. So the first principle that we work with is the fact that your body is designed to be self-healing and self-regulating. This is a fundamental principle that we see through many different types of alternative care, whether it's chiropractic or oriental medicine or naturopathy or homeopathy. We know that the body has an innate intelligence, something that's built in, that allows it to maintain what we call homeostasis. That's just a technical term for balance. So what we find is that human function works best if it's controlled within certain parameters. And we can see this very simply when we look, for example, at your blood test. We can see that there is what we call a normal or a reference range, and that's the expected value for any given test. And we're going to talk more about the problems with that system in just a little bit. But just to illustrate the concept of homeostasis, we can understand, for example, if we're testing your blood sugar, if your blood sugar is too high, then that's a problem, and if it's too low, then that's a problem. And it's almost like the Goldilocks principle. There's going to be that level and that range that's just right, and that's where your body works best. And this is the concept of homeostasis. The concept of homeostasis also says that the body has this built-in mechanism when something happens to push it out of a balanced state, that it has the ability and the capacity to recapture that balanced state and regain control and regulation of function. And that's across any system within the body or any function within the body. The second principle says that we actually have a control system over homeostasis. And that control system is what we call neuroendocrine immunology. And this controls all function and all physical systems and biological systems within your body itself. So the coordinated effort or the quality of how well your brain and your hormones and your immune system work together really dictates your ability to maintain balance and homeostasis. So the better able your brain, hormones, and immune system are in working together, the better the quality of your healing capacity, the more vitality you have, and the better able you are to stave off things like infections or disease. We can also say that things can disrupt that system. And we can sum up all of the things that impair our ability to control homeostasis and therefore control our well-being and our vitality. We can sum those things up in the word stress. Now, typically when I use the word stress, most people think about emotional stressors or psychological stressors. And these are the mental and emotional factors that come along with just being human and having lives and jobs and children and spouses and whatever may be bringing that emotional type stress to your life. But the reality is that there are other dimensions to stress. We can have physical stressors. For example, if I walk outside today and get hit by a car and break my leg, that physical damage to my body will actually cause a biological change or a biochemical change, which is part of a normal stress response. And that's actually desirable. But when those things get out of hand and are more extreme than expected, or than my body can handle, then they bring problems. We also have a third dimension to stress, and that's physiological. So for example, imagine that you have an infection, or if you have a hormone imbalance, or some type of exposure to a toxic environmental chemical. That's going to cause a shift within your body chemistry, shifting and impairing your neuroendocrine immune system and its ability to maintain balance and homeostasis. And that's a very critical part.